Okay, so we're moving on to the students panel. So we're going to ask all of our current students to come up front with microphones.
Just a handheld microphone that's
Let's see, right here. Is that on? Yep. Okay, so everybody line up. Yeah, I'll just give it. Okay, so the plan is each person is going to spend a minute or less just telling who they are and where they are in the program and what they're studying or what they hope to accomplish. And we'll buzz through that, and then after that we'll take questions. Okay? So we'll start with Shreya. Go ahead.
Okay, so hi. Here? It's on? Great. Okay, so hi, I'm Shreya. I'm in the 5th year of the program. And like Dr. Campo mentioned, I don't know where the time went. So it's been amazing. I did my undergrad in neuroscience at the University of Toronto, and then came here to start in the MD-PhD program at McGill. I'm doing my PhD in the lab of Dr. Nada Jabado. She's a pediatric neuro-oncologist, and so we study pediatric brain tumors, specifically a really aggressive kind. And we use a whole range of different techniques and technologies, everything from gene editing to next-generation sequencing. It's to try and uncover the mechanisms, the genetic mechanisms behind these, the development of these tumors. And other than that, I love being in the lab. I also love being in this program. This is kind of my second family away from the lab. They're my colleagues, but also my friends. And it's a great program to be in. You get to combine your love for medicine with your love for research if you are truly passionate about research. And yeah, that's kind of me.
That was awesome. So, hey, my name is Steph. I am in the same year of the program as Shreya, so 5th year. So going to be wrapping up my PhD next year. I am working in Josie Ursini Siegel's lab at the LDI. And so that's affiliated with the Jewish General Hospital. And we are looking at breast cancer metabolism. So very broad field. But yeah, aside from that, the program, I think Shreya really covered it pretty well. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out or come talk to us at the end. Thanks.
I'm Matt. I'm also a 5th year student in the program, like these guys and some of them. I'm a Montrealer. I grew up in the West Island of Montreal. I went to John Abbott for CEGEP, like I'm sure some of you guys did. I went to McGill in anatomy and cell biology for my undergrad, and now I'm in the MD-PhD program. And my research is based at the Goodman Cancer Center, which is the glass building, like basically right attached to this one. And I work in Peter Siegel's lab, who's the husband of Steph's supervisor. And the main focus of our lab is studying how cancer spreads or metastasizes. And my work in particular is basically focused on how cancer goes specifically to the brain. And we use many cell models, mouse models, and patient specimens to find a combination of treatments and different pharmacological treatments and other types of treatments to understand and also benefit the actual patients that are afflicted with this. And I love the program. You can see my smiling face on the brochure as proof.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm in the 2nd year of the program, so I'm going to be starting my PhD in January. I did an undergrad in molecular biology at the University of Sherbrooke, and I'm going to be doing my PhD at the MNI in neuroscience. And my project is not really perfectly defined, but I'm going to be working with stem cells to make muscle cells and motor neurons to model ALS. And use culture systems to study neurodegenerative disease. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dominique. So I'm from Montreal, and I did my undergrad at the University of Montreal in biomedical sciences. Then I had started a master's in genetics, and now I'm in my 2nd year of the program with Sarah. So I'm going to be starting my PhD as well next January. I'll be working in the field of ophthalmology, so I'll be doing a co-supervision, like I think you referred to. So I'm going to be working with Dr. Kounikoop, who's here, and with Dr. DiPolo at University of Montreal, and with another clinician at University of Montreal. And so we're looking at glaucoma mechanisms and development after corneal transplantation and understanding how this happens after surgery and how we can save patients from developing that condition, which is life-threatening, well, not life-threatening, but vision-threatening, and which arises in the vast majority of patients that are operated, and the surgery would be otherwise successful. So we're looking into the mechanisms and how to target it and how to treat it.
Hi. Hello. All right. So I'm Guido. I'm a fifth year student, so along with the other people to my right. Sorry? Yeah, and I don't know why we should have been all the 50 years together. My research, so I work at the Montreal Neurological Institute, but I'm actually co-supervised by somebody at the University of Montreal and by somebody at the University of Sherbrooke. So you can do it if you look for the right people. And my research consists in using magnetic resonance imaging to study the impact that concussions have on the brain of children, as well as the link between concussions and aggressive criminal behavior. And in addition to that, Mark said that if you're in the program, you don't have to worry about mortgages or children, but I have a daughter and I have a mortgage, so I would be happy to provide my perspective on anything, including work-life balance. Thank you.
I'm Heather. I think I also feature in the brochure. You may have seen my face before. Story is I'm an out-of-province student, so I started in Winnipeg. That's where undergrad was, in something called biopsychology. I think it's now called neuroscience. Did a quick master's in England, and I'm here now. So I'm also co-supervised. I'm half by a basic scientist at the Neuro, and half by a neurologist. So my PhD project is sort of purposed to bring together the research happening in this basic lab with a potential clinical application. I'm in a music lab, which is a lot of fun. Playing around with brain stimulation and seeing if we can boost some brain systems involved with memory that could be useful for patients with neurocognitive dysfunction and HIV. Having a great time.
My name's Mac. I started in the same year as Heather. I'm originally from Vancouver Island, but I've been in Montreal now for almost 10 years. So I started in 2008 in anatomy and cell bio. I knew Matt back then, and I was Matt's TA for a minute. I did a master's here as well, working at the Neuro, working on glial biology. And then I went down to Boston and worked in a biotech for 2 years and worked on synapse biology in the context of Alzheimer's. And now I'm back at McGill and going the long haul. So I'm working with a pediatric neurologist, and what I study is a rare form of a leukodystrophy. And basically, in a nutshell, we're designing gene therapy for that. And so I'm early on. I'm just started my third year, having a lot of fun and hoping that it turns out. So I'll let you know.
Hi everyone, I'm John. I'm originally from Toronto. I did my undergrad at the University of Toronto in pathobiology and immunology. I became interested in the idea of pursuing a career as a clinician scientist when my dad was diagnosed and ultimately passed away from pancreatic cancer. So I looked for opportunities on how to learn more about this disease. For my master's, I worked with Steve Gallinger, who was a pancreatic surgeon, who really looked at the immune system and how it plays a role in pancreatic cancer. I wanted for my medical training to pick an institution that has both a good medical faculty and a good graduate school, so McGill was a natural choice. And on top of that, there was a frequent collaborator that we worked with, George Zagopoulos, who's also a pancreatic surgeon here. So I'll be doing my PhD with him, and we'll be trying to look at in vivo models on how to investigate the immune system and how it plays a role in pancreatic cancer.
Hi everyone, my name is Mark. I was born and raised in Montreal. I went to Marianopolis CEGEP, and then I did an undergrad in pharmacology here at McGill. I still have a year to decide on a PhD supervisor, so I'm not sure yet. I'm interested in respiratory research, and I'd also be happy to answer any questions regarding applications. If you want to chat after, you can come find me. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Owen. I'm originally from Vancouver, but I've actually been in Montreal for 7 years now, and I'll be here for another 8 years. So I did both my bachelor's and master's at McGill. With my master's, I did my research with Dr. Jose Diodoro in cancer research. He's a very basic cell cancer biologist, but we work closely with a clinician scientist, Dr. William Folks. And my research is to figure out so first of all, we looked at mutations found in ovarian germ cell tumor patients, and we're trying to characterize that in mouse models.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. I am a first-year student here. I am originally from Ottawa, though I did my undergraduate degree in life sciences at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. I stuck around at Queen's and did my master's at Queen's in pathology and molecular medicine, specializing in cancer research. So I'm in the same position as Mark, where since I'm in the first year of the program, I'm taking that year to kind of hunt around for a PhD supervisor, looking to stay in the cancer field, coming from a very basic science and cell signaling background. But if anyone has any questions about being an out-of-province student, I'd be happy to answer those.
Great. So my name's Matt. I'm also a first-year student, so I think all the first years have kind of stuck to the left here. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Ontario. I did an undergraduate degree in psychology and chemistry. I then wasn't sure what I really wanted to do, either medicine or research after that, so I worked for a year in mental health, and then I went into sort of an insurance job for a little bit there. Seems unrelated, but it all sort of comes together in the end. I then decided to do a master's, also in Ontario. I was looking at traumatic brain injury and how sort of concussive injuries can predispose people to developing neurodegenerative conditions, such as Alzheimer's disease. And I had a really influential supervisor there who reminded me that I don't need to choose between either doing research or sort of pursuing a career in medicine. So I came here. I'm in my first year, as mentioned, and I'm really excited for what's to come. So I'll be happy to answer any questions as well. Thanks.
So, do we have? We're going to take some questions now, if anybody has. Are there any? Yeah.
Yes. Can you talk about the application process?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, I'll do it.
Does this one work? This one works. Okay.
Yeah, I had a question about the application process and what makes your application stand out, like MCAT, volunteering, and all of that stuff.
So can you repeat that again?
Okay.
A little louder.
Yeah, I'm asking about the application process and what makes your application stand out. Yeah.
So I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer that, because I never would have gotten into this program. But I mentioned that earlier. But it really, it is a combined program. But to get in, you've got to do the whole medical school application. So whatever McGill requires to get into medical school, you've got to do that. On top of that, for our application, you have to, there's a little essay about, we want to hear about your commitment to research, your experience with research. We ask for a couple letters of reference from research supervisors on top of that. So, if you make it all the way through to the interview, which is the MMIs, I don't know if you know, if you make it to the interviews, then we have our interview in the afternoon. Okay, and our interview is very relaxed.
More so.
Our interview, what we've been doing is I've actually asked each student to come with 2 slides. One slide to tell about themselves, with their family and their pets, and the other is to talk about their research. And then we have a group of, we have a program advisory committee. I didn't mention that. Lisanne is on that program advisory committee. So we have individuals sitting around a table ask questions. Really, we're looking for, commitment to research. Somebody who's going to go the mile. I mean, the program is really intended to turn out people that are going to end up having research as a significant component of their career. In terms of what would make your application stand out, I don't know if you guys have any. That's right. We're writing a book, right? So we have a book, and I'll have it up here afterwards. You can look at. I don't know. Is it really? Nobody has anything to say about that? What would make your application stand out? What would make your application stand out for a medical school or for the program? Go ahead.
I think when you listen, and I have the benefit of hearing from these guys all the time, but when you listen to everybody give their little sort of elevator pitch about their work, you notice that everybody's sort of got something a little bit unique about what they're doing. And so when you develop your narrative for an application, you really want to make sure that you capitalize on what makes you unique. It's not necessarily, everybody's going to have a great application, right? You're going to be up against great people. What you need to do is make sure that you really play your strengths and what makes you different. And I know that doesn't seem like it's very specific advice, but when you look at each one of us, there's definitely something different, right, from all of the rest. And you have to figure out what that is and make it sound great.
I just want to add to that, the narrative part. I think if you can tell a story through your application and the thought process, why you want to do this, and just your life story in a cohesive way, it would go a long way in your application as well.
It's obvious, but I think also making sure that you don't just focus on the medical part and not just on the research part. It's really like a whole, and you have to show that you've kind of worked on both in your life and that you want both equally, right? Because it's a very specific program and it's very demanding, but it combines both. So that's something to keep in mind if you're applying to the MDCM-PhD program. You really want to do 50-50. So try to orient your narrative and your CV and how you talk about your life in that sense.
Any other questions?
So I just wanted to ask if having a master's is considered a plus when it comes to applying, or does having an undergrad with significant research background enough to permit you to apply to the program?
Guys, raise your hand if you have a master's. 50-50, approximately.
Touche.
So I guess it helps. But also definitely doesn't disqualify you if you don't have a master's. Far from. If you're an undergrad with a significant track record of research, you're in a great position to be able to get into the program. You want to add?
Yeah.
Hi. I just wanted to ask, how did you go about choosing your lab, whether it be basic science versus clinical science, and whether there's kind of an advantage in choosing a lab that's more clinically related since you can apply the knowledge of your first year of medicine?
So I don't know. I think it really depends on what your interests are. If your interests are more towards the clinical side, by all means, seek out a supervisor who does research in that arena. On the other hand, I think it's a matter of trial and error. You need to go out and try. And the nice thing about the program is that it allows you the freedom in that first year and a half or so of medical school to really go out and try a bunch of different labs. And most supervisors are incredibly welcoming to MD-PhD students in particular. So, just try it out. If you like a basic science kind of environment, then do your PhD in that. I think one of the things that, 8 years seems like a long time, but in the span of our lifespan, it's really not that much. So if you're doing something that you love, and trust me, during your PhD, you need to be doing something that will get you up in the morning and get you going on a weekend, on a Sunday, and Sunday, 11 p.m., something that's going to get you to the lab. You want to be doing something that you care about, so it doesn't matter what the research is, as long as it has some kind of clinical application, but you can really, extend that considerably.
Also, if I can add something to that, sometimes depending on what you want to do, you might not find a single person that can offer everything. So there's definitely a possibility for you to reach out, as I did. I was finding out after my first year that neither of my two supervisors could offer exactly what I wanted, so I reached out to a third person. You can certainly do that. In fact, it's your responsibility as a future researcher to seek out these collaborations, and I think doing your PhD is a good way to do that.
You might think that you were referring to doing clinical research versus basic science research, and you might think that doing clinical research might go quicker, right, than basic science research, especially if you're limited in time in this program. But I think most of us do basic science research, and if I speak for myself, I try to orient myself towards clinical research, but then I'm still back in basic science research because that's what I know. And at some point, it's my comfort zone, but I chose a completely different field. So there's always a way to combine the different factors, the new factors and the factors with which you're comfortable with. And I think choosing your supervisors accordingly to make it the best and exactly what you want out of your PhD is the key. So combining clinical with PhD only, with MD PhD supervisors, I think all of that together makes it a unique combination, and then you can have both at the same time if that's what you really want. So possibilities are endless, really.
So I was wondering, according to McGill, if you're a resident of Canada, you don't need to take the MCAT. So I was wondering how many of you guys took the MCAT to get into this program? And also on the administration side, do you look at the MCAT score if you're trying to accept them for their PhD as well?
Do you want to speak to the administrative of the MCAT? Yeah, I think administrative and maybe the newer students could, because my MCAT is outdated.
So again, the PhD, we're like the PhD part. So there's a whole med school admissions that's not here tonight. Oh, you want to speak to that? But we do not look at the MCAT, okay? But McGill.
Obtained your bachelor's degree outside of Canada, you need to do your MCAT.
So what if you did your undergrad in the US and then you did your master's?
Undergrad in the US, I think you still have to do the MCAT. It's outside of Canada, so. It's because it's your bachelor's degree. That's the basis of admission degree, yeah.
Good. Other questions? We're going to break this up in about a minute, and people are going to come down for more questions. So other people can go home if they want. Okay, go ahead.
So my question is, like, by the end of the program, the MD PhD program, would you necessarily be committing yourself to academia? Like, let's say, like, as an undergrad, I see that as nice, but maybe by, like, your 7th year, you'd realize that academia is not necessarily for you. So my question is that, would there still be some sort of flexibility towards the end of your program if you want to, let's say, like, commit to, like, clinical work 100%? Or...
So a few years back, we surveyed all of our alumni, basically that have graduated from the program since, I guess, the 70s all the way until a couple years ago, to see where they wound up and what they're doing now after completing the MD PhD program. And it's actually quite a mixed bag in terms of what people are doing. There are many of them which are, fulfilling what we describe as like the classic MD PhD path, that are clinician scientists that have research groups and grants and all that. But there is another large group of graduates that either are not actually doing research at all, or are more collaborators in research that are definitely still involved in research but aren't PIs themselves. So there definitely still is that flexibility. And even in these surveys, a lot of those people that did the MD PhD program that aren't actively running research labs still value the research experience, because it really, for them at least, changed the way they thought about medicine and the biology underlying the diseases that they're treating and things like that. So yeah, to answer your question, there's still plenty of flexibility, but the goal is ultimately to be doing research. But you could, if you don't have to. No one's forcing you to do anything, really.
Any last question?
Hi, I'm just wondering, like, what else except like the regular stuff you need for MD and research? What else do you need for MD PhD program? Is that just it, or just this? Not a good word, but is there anything else?
I don't know, but I'm willing to guess maybe a certain level of maturity. I mean, you are committing yourself for 7 to 8 years, so, and you're being paid as long as you don't do weird things with the money. But you need to at least, I think that you need to show that you know what you're getting yourself into. So a certain level of maturity is certainly important.
Thank you.
So I think what we're passing around some exit surveys. We'd appreciate it if you could fill it out, because we're sort of like to know who you guys are, and if we are, are you the, are we telling you what you need to know? Are there other things that we're not telling you? There's also opportunity to do this electronically on the web. But there's one last point I'd like to make. We didn't bring it up, but we actually have some francophones in the program. I think you two ladies are the first two in many, many years. So are there any francophones here? Aha. Okay. So maybe you want to speak to them a little bit about being francophone.
In French?
No, in French, but also being a francophone at McGill.
OK. Sarah, tu peux pitcher aussi, si tu veux.
Allez-y.
OK. Bonjour. Je ne sais pas si vous venez de l'Université de Montréal ou de l'Université de Sherbrooke comme Sarah ou d'ailleurs, de l'Université Laval. C'est sûr que c'est un plaisir pour nous de vous avoir. Ça apporte de la diversité. Puis, on ne se sent pas à la maison à McGill. Il y a pas de, je pense pas que c'est pas une ambiance qu'on ressent nécessairement. Tout le monde est bilingue, trilingue, quadrilingue. Donc, que ce soit le français, l'espagnol ou d'autres affaires, rendu là, ça fait plus de différence vraiment. On est très accueillants. Puis, plusieurs personnes sont bilingues, justement. Vous avez la possibilité de faire vos examens en français si ça vous accommode davantage. Et puis, en termes de recherche, c'est sûr que vous pouvez choisir des superviseurs qui sont bilingues ou juste francophones. Puis, via des co-supervisions, que ce soit à l'Université de Montréal, comme on a ici, ou ailleurs, il y a toujours moyen d'avoir cette espèce de confort-là, si ça vous convient davantage à vous. En termes de français, c'est la seule université qui offre le programme MD-PhD dès l'entrée dans le programme directement. Donc, je sais que l'Université de Montréal, si jamais vous appliquez aussi en médecine à l'Université de Montréal, ils offrent le programme PhD et MD comme un add-on, un petit ajout au fil du parcours. Mais vous n'avez pas de compensation financière, puis vous n'avez pas l'honneur et le prestige qui va avec. Donc, c'est unique à McGill. C'est typique de McGill d'offrir ce programme-là avec cette compensation financière-là, ce soutien financier-là, qui fait une énorme différence quand on y pense bien. Là, ça sauve plusieurs années de dette. Et puis, c'est quelque chose de très prestigieux et c'est honorifique pour nous de rentrer. Puis, je pense que c'est assez unanime que je parle en anglais ou pas. Je pense que c'est un mot assez universel. Donc, je pense que c'est ça. On se sent chanceux, puis on se sent à la maison, puis on est à Montréal, donc il n'y a pas ça continue, puis vous avez des anciens comme nous qui viennent de l'Université de Montréal ou de l'Université de Sherbrooke, puis on est francophones. Puis dans la classe en médecine avec qui vous allez être et avec qui vous allez retourner après votre PhD, il va y avoir énormément de francophones aussi. Moi, je dirais 50% ou plus. Fait que je vais laisser Sarah continuer pour pas lui...
C'est à peu près ça que je m'en allais dire. Moi, j'avais peur qu'en arrivant à McGill, c'était une de mes craintes de moins me faire d'amis à cause de la barrière de la langue. Puis je me suis rendu compte assez rapidement dans la classe que 50% des gens, en fait, sont francophones puis ils viennent à McGill. Oui, pour le prestige, oui, mais moi, c'était vraiment important pour moi de faire ma médecine en anglais aussi, ma science en anglais, parce que les présentations, l'anglais, c'est la langue de la science. Donc, pour moi, ça n'a vraiment pas été une barrière, puis je trouve que c'est une grande richesse d'avoir cette opportunité-là. Puis, je pense que tu as tout volé ce que je voulais dire. Mais si vous avez des questions, n'hésitez pas à venir nous parler tantôt. Ça va nous faire plaisir de répondre à vos questions.
So, thank you guys. We're going to invite people to come down now and ask us questions personally. Maybe you want to stay for a minute or two if people want to ask you about, urological surgery. Okay? Thanks all for coming, and please fill out the surveys.